I would like to start by introducing our first panelist, who is Trifina Persis, who is a social work graduate with a calling towards justice, compassion, and advocacy. She also helps with in case of child violence, mental health, and social action, and in certain areas which she is particularly passionate about. And for someone who's really young, uh, it's someone we can really look up to for as a person who has really taken what their passion is and made something out of it, made a difference, and found out ways in which they could help the society. And some of those accomplishments are being selected by UNICEF as a youth advocate for children in 2018. She also represented UNICEF in the chair panel at a national conference. She was a TED speaker for the Delhi World Children's Day event of UNICEF, and also inaugurated and flagged the UNICEF on campus club to spread the vision of ending violence against children to the Stella Maris College student body, which is a college in Chennai, I believe. She is also the convener of the group which has brought this together for us, which is SHOUT, the Sexual Harassment Out for Children. So she's also the convener for that club. So I'm really glad to see her here among us, and for the purpose that she is with us. More about our second panelist for the day. Not more, sorry. Let me now introduce our second panelist for the day, who would be dealing with some of the laws which are in place, and also the current what the government is doing about it, what different people groups are doing about it to stop this. Yeah. So she is Mrs. Aspie Johnson, and she's a director and founder trustee of RUV. So she oversees RUV's operations in, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correct, it's ARUWE. It might be RUV. So she oversees RUV's operations in Tamil Nadu. She's a professional social worker and has over 29 years of experience in the social development sector, especially working with care, support, protection rights, and welfare of the urban poor, especially children, women, and the elderly. So she is also a member of the Juvenile Justice Board in Chennai, a former member of Child Welfare Committee in Chennai, and which is under the government of Tamil Nadu, especially helping children in need and protecting their rights and their life, basically. She also is involved in focusing more on women's services, which includes counseling and guidance services, facilitating training, and empowering and mentoring services to women, rescuing and rehabilitating vulnerable women, elders, children, and the homeless community. So it's a real honor that you are, it's a privilege that you are among us, and we respect you a lot for the work you have done over these years. Further accomplishments include being special appointments include being a member of the Advisory Committee for Shelters for the Homeless Corporation of Chennai, external member of Board of Studies in Madras School of Social Work, MSSW. She's also a resource person for the Christian Institute of Management, and an ethics committee member in Agarwal Eye Hospital, board member of International Institute of Psychotherapy, board member in IWID, which is Initiatives for Women Development Organization, trainer on POSH, behavior skill, life skill, and I actually have to conclude here because the list does go on. It's really inspiring to see that the things you have accomplished and the recognition your work has brought. Thank you, ma'am, for coming among us and giving us your time today. So finally, I would also like to introduce our third panelist for the day, who is Mrs. Jamila Koshi, and actually Dr. Jamila Koshi, who is a psychiatrist and has an MBBS and DPM in practice and is in practice for over 30 years. She has also completed an Masters of Divinity in Theology. Over these years, she has worked in the Army Hospital and in public and private hospitals in several Indian cities, apart from having her own private practice. She has been a part-time counselor at St. Stephen's College and has been involved with community health projects, NGOs, destitute homes, special needs schools, etc., and teaching, training, and consultation. She has taught courses in counseling and on gender at Bible seminaries like SIACS and for organizations like TAFT and BCTI UIM. She was involved for many years with university mission organizations like UESI. She also loves writing on issues like mental health, gender, and justice. She has written a book for children called Toddlers to Teens and contributed to a few others. She's married and blessed with two daughters. Thank you for joining us, ma'am, here today. So with that, I think I have mentioned all of our panelists, and as you all have heard, everything they share today with us will be from years of experience and a practical understanding, which certainly is more than we have access to or understand ourselves. So on that note, I would like to also tell you that following the panelist discussion, we would be having a time for Q&A. So you can send any questions you may have during the sessions. You can send them to the participant in the participant list, the person marked as Q&A. You can send your questions directly to them. Also, a Google form would be shared, which you can, if you want to send your questions anonymously, you could put your questions on that form and send it ahead so that those questions are answered and discussed during the time of Q&A. So without any further delay, I would really like to give this time over to all the things we have to hear from such really much qualified panel members. And with that, I hand this time over to Trifina Persis for the first.
Yeah, thank you. I'm unmuted now. Okay. Can you see my screen? Is my screen visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Yeah, great. Okay, so just a second. Okay, now my screen is visible. Okay, so firstly, hi, and I am a regular attendee of Lighthouse, and I find this a great privilege and a joy to be, one of the speakers as well. And hi and hello to Asmi ma'am. I've seen her, and I'm, have been a trainer, and I'm a huge fan of Jamila ma'am. Have attended her sessions, and I'm really looking forward to hear from you. So today is a very special session for me because this is something that I like personally relate to, and something I am passionate about. So talking about sexual violence, and this is something that is so current and is something that is burning in our country, because it is a major issue that is being so persistent, and it is a crime that is like so much rooted in our culture, and to a point where it's even legitimized and institutionalized in our social systems in so many other spectrums and so on. And if you look at the crime records, like according to like the National Crime Records Bureau, there were like more than 228,650 incidences that were recorded 2018. But now, if you see in 2021, it's 428,278, and that's like an 87% increase. And the funny thing about this is that none of us look more bothered by this issue, and it's so mainstreamed. Every on this, be it social media or even ads or the mass media, and we are projecting this whole concept of sex in a way where we idolize it and romanticize it. And yes, that is something that I did want to look into and was passionate about. I'm so happy that we as as a community are taking this up and looking forward to this. Moving on, the the current, okay. Okay, cool. So the topic that I wanted to speak on was child sexual violence, and because that's something that I do specialize in and something that I'm very personally and very professionally passionate about. Um, I picked up the most simple definition of it. So looking at child sexual violence, I mean, you can read from the screen, but I've highlighted three main points. So if you look at it, like sexual abuse is basically involvement of children in any sexual activity. The first thing is they are not able to fully comprehend it. Secondly, the concept of consent, they are unable to give informed consent, and then it's something that they are forced to involve in, which they are not developmentally prepared for, and is also something that violates the morality and the laws in the rules of our country. Looking at this, putting this into simple terms, right? Moving on. It is basically any form of sexual exploitation. It is any form of sexual exploitation by an adult or an older minor. And CSA includes contact as well as non-contact violence. This is something, okay, I will come back on this. We will talk about that. And this can be anything with regard to force, with regard to force, or could be encouraging a child or persuading a child to engage in any part or any kind of sexual activity, right? So talking about contact and non-contact violence, right? In our country or in our culture, what we mostly do is that we address or we acknowledge only contact violence, right? Oh, she was raped. Oh, then that's a violence. Oh, she was abused. Okay, then that's a violence. But we are in a place where we give a blind eye to non-contact violence, right? This is something that we take so lightly. And the other day, when one person was just flirting or teasing the other person, the whole crowd is just giving a complete blind eye. Like literally no one is bothered. Like that's how normalized it is. Like it's in our media, it's everywhere, and it's even being romanticized, right? So and it can be anything, and looking at it, it can be touching, it can be fondling, it can be groping, it can be penetration by inserting a body part or an object, it can be masturbating before a child or making the child touch themselves, it can be making the child remove their clothes or making them show their genitals, or you showing your genitals to a child and making them watch or hear sexual acts. And it could be owning, sharing, or producing sexual images or videos of children. So vastly, and the funny thing about that is that it's not being reported. Online grooming is or online sexual violence is something that is completely not being reported, and the report rates are pretty much low with regard to that. Moving on, the forms of sexual violence. Uh, right now, like we did see the whole point of non-contact and contact violence, and here by severe it doesn't mean the magnitude of it. The forms, according to the National Institute of Public Cooperation and Child Development, New Delhi, they have classified them into these: severe being assault, including rape and sodomy, touching or fondling a child, forcing a child to exhibit their private parts, photographing a child in nude. And then there's behavioral. There's touching behavior, and then there's non-touching behavior. Okay, talking about this, this is where the whole concept of while teaching the children the whole awareness, sex ed and stuff, we have this one statement, one phrase which says good touch, bad touch. But that's where I personally feel like that's where the problem lies, right? When you say good touch, bad touch, the thing about children and as they grow is that they are exploring their bodies, right? And sometimes this touch feels good, right? Like, I mean, come on, we're all adults here, we know what we're talking about. And it's a bodily reflex. And the children, they usually don't know how exactly or how to navigate between that, and sometimes that bad touch can feel like good touch, right? And in that sense, that's when you have to teach them it's about don't touch. It's actually do not touch, not good touch or bad touch. It's do not touch. And coming back to non-touching behavior, right? Okay. uh, yes. Yes, I will do that. Coming back to non-touching behavior. Okay. When I was in like 7th grade, I was just walking by the street to my tuition every day. And every day there was this shopkeeper. He kept saying really uh, inappropriate things or gestures, the kind of things that he was doing. Everything felt very unsafe, very violating and all that. So when one day I chose to like ask him or stand up for myself, and the one thing he said was like, oh, Nana, why are you making a big scene? Did I hold your hand? Did I touch you? And the funny thing about that is that, it's so okay. It's so okay to do those things. And non-touching behavior, it doesn't have to be a person exhibiting themselves. It doesn't have to be a person masturbating in front of you. The things that they do with their hands, the gestures, or the kind of things that when they use that tongue to do something to you, and so many more ways. There are so many more ways a person can violate another person, or a person can abuse another person. And the whole thing about this is that we reduce the magnitude of these things. We say, oh, this is wrong, this is okay, and this you can tolerate. The thing is, we compartmentalize those, and this is something that is very subjective. And the very same thing, the very thing, a person looking at a person inappropriately can affect a person as equally as contact abuse. And we mostly ignore this whole point of it, and we just reduce the magnitude of it, and we just negate it, and completely not acknowledge something that has been going on so much, and to a point where it's going on so much. And the whole touching behavior, and touching behavior here need not be sexual, by the way. And let's say we have uncles and aunties in our place, and there's like and while uncles and aunties are there, they'll be like, go sit on uncle's lap. Oh, it's just uncle, no, he's just kissing, he's just showing his love, he's just showing his care. But it's supposed to be anything that makes a person uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be this person touching me here in my private parts, or touching me that. Even if he hugged me, or even if he held my hand, and if that made me uncomfortable, or if that made the child uncomfortable in any way, that is a form of abuse. It has to be, it could be anything. It need not be, oh, it's this particular thing. If only this happens. Anything that makes the child feel unsafe is abuse. So that is something that we need to like teach our community. It's the whole point of consent comes there as well. Normalizing the whole touching behavior. And we feel anything that makes us feel unsafe is abuse and should be considered as abuse. And other forms, like we already saw, is forceful kissing, sexual advances, and exhibitionism, and exposing children to pornography, right? Okay. uh, is my screen still visible? Oh great, my screen is not visible.
No, you're visible right now.
Okay. Okay, my screen, I'm still gonna go on. My PPT is not visible, but I'm just gonna move on. Okay. Yeah, we spoke about forms. Okay, now let's look at who the abuser could be. Most of the times, abusers, it is people that the children usually know, or the children usually trust and care about, right? It is an older adult, someone that is knowledgeable, and it could be any adult. That could be a stranger, or a sibling, or a caretaker. And when we say caretaker or a knowledgeable adult, it could be anyone. And it, in some cases, we hold these certain people in such a prestigious position. We choose to not believe the fact that they would be able to do it. Like, say, a pastor, or a church person, or someone, an uncle, or the most reputed person in our family, and we choose to ignore the fact that they are capable of doing those things, and we just neglect that whole issue. And it could be anyone from the immediate circle. It could be a family member. It could be a neighbor or a person from another household. And another thing that abusers use to get to the children could be force, tricks, bribes, threats, or persuasion, right? And forcefully engaging the children in sexual activity, or tricking the children into like, or manipulating them into engage in sexual activities, and bribing them, giving them gifts, giving them things so that they trust them, so that they are able to get through with the children. And then we have threats saying, oh, you did this that day and you failed this thing. I'll tell your parents if you did this. I'll tell your parents if you did that, and all that. And we threaten them. And then there's persuasion, right? And the thing about persuasion is that it's easy to persuade children. And for a long time, the thing about persuasion, again, children grow up thinking that they were the problem, because they felt that in a point they had given in. In my case, like, that was something that I thought, as while I grew up, that's something that I held against myself. I was like, oh, what if I was the problem? What if I was the one that gave it? And that's something that like completely wrecked me for a long time. But it took me a lot of learning, a lot of educating myself to understand that no, it was actually not my problem. It was not me at the end of the day. I was being persuaded, I was being manipulated, and all that. Right. So there are various reasons as to why children hide abuses, or why a person hides the fact that they're sexually abused. It could be threat, the perpetrator threatening them to not open up, or it could be fear of being rejected by the family member, and it could be anything, and it could be fear and feelings of anger, betrayal, and sadness due to breach of trust, and even loyalty towards the abuser, and so many more things. And looks like I'm out of time, and I'll just finish with this last slide. It says what we should do when we encounter abuse. So anytime you find a child that has encountered abuse, or anyone that has encountered abuse, do not panic and do not overreact. Do not criticize or blame the child, because it's never their problem. Do not make children guilty, and it's important that we support to speak them up. And it's important that we're sympathetic and supportive to discuss their feelings. And it's important that you encourage the child to ventilate their feelings, and any feelings of anger or betrayal or just guilt. And it's so important that we don't minimize the magnitude of what has happened. Whatever it was, it's important that we don't minimize the magnitude of what has happened. And sometimes it's important to consult the doctor, be it a psychiatrist or any general doctor. And it's so important that we stand by the child throughout the whole process, and not re-victimize them, especially when parents argue in front of the child, being like, hey, you should have been a better parent, or you should have been that, or you should have done this. It's so important that we not do that as well. And it's also important to consider counseling and psychotherapeutic remedies to deal with those things. And also very important to discuss and lodge police complaints, so that this thing does not further more. And looks like I have taken a lot of time, and thanks for the opportunity. I'll talk more on the Q&A session. Thank you.
So, so I just want to thank the team members here for giving me an opportunity to share on this, what Trifina has shared about. It's below 18, whatever has happened, it's a child sexual abuse. And I will be, I think, sharing more on after 18, so many things happen, and that comes under this POSH Act. And whatever Trifina has told, it comes under POCSO Act. So thank you for the privilege given to me to share this. And I thank Pranita for inviting me to be part of this panel discussion. And I should thank Jobin for being at the back of me to get all my things, like so many things he was able to put up with. So, and I want to really thank Jamila ma'am for being here, because what we can do so many other things, but to make a change in individual, I think the role will be more on Jamila ma'am's session. We have seen so many cases, but solution alone we cannot give for that individual. Might be the act can speak for the person, they can get them victim fund, so many other things. But for the individual, I think the role of a psychiatrist is a vital role. So I am so happy to share this panel with Dr. Jamila, and it is really my privilege to be part of this with the Trifina, because I have seen her at Stella Maris College when she was doing her BSW, and I saw the spark in her there, then and there itself. And I cannot say anything more because she's got the gene in her, a father and a mother gene, and I'm sure she's going to really rock. And we people, see, since we are growing old, so many things we will not be able to do. But I think youngsters like Trifina and others, they can really voice out. See, the whole point in all our discussion is, I think we all put up the questions, but I feel that 90% of them do not voice out. Thus, that is the reason still these things are happening in our society. So first we have to learn to at least speak up and tell your pain, that because many a times women especially, they feel that it is a part of a system to go through the pain. So I think that that learning should be there at least at the end of our session. So let me take you through quickly about the act, because my requirement for this whole panel thing is to tell you all about the POSH, that is Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act, and how that act came and what is meant by sexual harassment and few other things. So I'll quickly take you all through this slide. So POSH, and when we speak about child things, we talk about POXO Act. So this is POSH. POSH is, it looks very posh only. So, but still there are many people who are really struggling to get their justice. So it is about prevention of sexual harassment, and this act talks about three things. So three things is, one is the act talks about protection of women at workplace. So they are, this act is the one which is giving protection for the women at workplace. And second is, this act also helps the workplace, I mean, the employer to have some prevention mechanism. Prevention, conducting awareness program as such. So they are working on the second aspect is to prevent, and then the prohibition. So these three things the POSH is POSH involves in. So the next slide. Okay, so in this 15-minute session, I will take you all through what is POSH and how this POSH Act has come, and about main provision and how you can lodge a complaint, and what are the benefits we will get from all this, whatever, the content. So let me take you all through this evolution of sexual harassment laws. The first one, when we talk about this act, is first it came as a constitutional right, how right against exploitation. So exploitation is talking about not only at home, at other places, even it was specifically talking on workplace. And the second is about the IPC 1960, how criminal assault of women to outrage women's modesty, and section 509, which punishes an individuals for using a word or gesture or act intended to insult the modesty of a woman. So this particular IPC, sometimes when we are not able to apply this act 2013, we can ask the person, that is the complainant, to lodge a complaint and quoting this IPC. Then came this 1997 incident. I think most of you all will know about Banwari Devi, an individual who was a social worker who had experienced sexual harassment when she was about to stop a child marriage. So how she was harassed by many women, many men in her community. And when she had gone to lodge a complaint, the police did not help her to get justice. And finally, there was an NGO called Visakha which stepped in, and they took up the case of this Banwari Devi. And then this act on, this Visakha guidelines had come. So since 1997, most of the workplace had this Visakha committee in place. Like that was a committee which was addressing issues relating to women harassment or sexual harassment at workplace. So this was happening from 1997. And then we all know about the incident which has shaken our India, 2012. It was talking, what was it? 2012 was Nirbhaya incident. So after that, 2013 Act had come. So in that they were just sexual harassment of women in workplace, prevention, prohibition, and redressal, and there were strict guidelines constituted, and also they made it mandatory for the companies to have an ICC set up so that they will be the one who will be taking up the complaints and also doing the redressal. So these are the things about the Sexual Harassment Act, how it came into being. And then about the law. So when you talk about POSH, that is Prevention of Sexual Harassment, we should know about it. This act had come in 2013, and this law supersedes the Visakha guidelines, and it extends only to whole of India, and it is for the protection of women at workplace. Even though I can say that recently, I've got at least 18 plus years of experience in handling women's issues, especially relating to sexual harassment at workplace. But I find sometimes there are even men who are having harassment, who are facing harassment at workplace. So even though this act speaks more of for the women, but the policy can be changed in such a way it becomes a gender neutral policy, where the company has to prepare in such a way so that the justice is also given for the male person who's also going through this harassment. So these are the key points of the act. So it is applicable for the case, as I told you, might be the act is talking for the women, but if there are men or any other people who are going through it, they can also come. They can lodge a complaint, because ICC is the body which can do the inquiry process. And this act is applicable for any employees who are working in that organization, temporary staff, contract workers, trainees, even the student trainees. If they are facing any harassment, they can bring it to the this POSH committee. And it is mandate that all the organization which has got more than 10 employees have to have this ICC committee formed, and they have to have this committee, and wherein I'll tell you how what are the methods, how they constitute this committee. And the role of the employer or the organization is to conduct various awareness programs at workplace, and it is mandatory that they have to conduct this training program or the awareness program annually, because they all know this act is so dry and people are not so they don't give much importance to this. So the act itself has mandated, stating that annually all the employees have to go through this refreshers course. So this is how, these are the key points about the act. And when the company does not comply with this, and what are the consequences they'll face, the penalty and other things. So the law again talks about gender equality under the Article 14. And then it is the right to life and live with dignity, according to the Article 21. This is about the law. I know it is very dry, but for us, we should have sufficient knowledge about this act. Then only we'll be able to really speak out, or at least voice out. And you can also go to the next process. If the company is not supporting you, you all can reach out to the next level of High Court or to the police. Because many a times when I have handled most of the companies, I can say they are standing with the complainant. But sometimes they don't want to lose the best employee, they compromise. So in that case, the individual can take up the case to the police station and then can handle the case, because actually the Sexual Harassment Act is there, but most of the companies are not giving importance at all. See, when I talk about my experience, there are companies which has got 70 employees, and we at least get at least yearly 3 to 4 cases. But there are even companies which has got more than, I can say, 700 or 7,000 employees, but we are getting only 1 case a year. Can we say that the company is following all the rules and regulation? And you mean to say there are no harassment? No. There are many companies which does not want to bring this cases to the committee, or they just like that, they bring a compromise between both the individuals. So what I would suggest is, through this whatever session you've given me, you have to just voice out. If the company is not taking up your case or giving you justice, you have to take another step forward in taking up this case to the police station or to the court. and get your justice, because I have seen many women suffering because they know they are the respondent is holding a superior position and the company does not give importance, and they sit with the complaint and they take their own time. So I am a member of many companies where as an external member, and being a social worker, sometimes I also help the complainant to go forward, because she cannot be suffering at no cost. So these are the ways how being I wanted each and every individual to be more proactive when they face any sort of injustice at workplace. So this is talking about again section 509 talks about the insult of modesty, because most of the respondent, when they logic, the complainant says, no, he'll say, no, I did not treat, they give a lot of explanation, but we have to quote this particular thing and help that person get justice. So there are few things here, when we talk about this act, there are few things which we have to know about this act. What is meant by sexual harassment? Because there is a clear-cut definition given in the act. And then what is workplace? Because some of them, when they travel from work to their home, if they face some difficulty on sexual harassment, they come to the company. So we have to know the definition of workplace and who's an aggrieved woman, and what, how do we say about the definition of virtual harassment, because that is a new trend after our COVID. Many companies have now formulated the definition for virtual harassment, so that there are many cases which comes relating to all this virtual harassment too. And what is not sexual harassment? I would say that 10% of the cases, whatever I've handled all these years, sometimes those are malicious complaint. So it is very difficult to know. See, this act is meant to protect women. But I'm sorry to say, being a woman, I would say that there are times where women misuse the act. So that whenever I just conduct sessions, I tell them, see, this act has been brought to protect you all and give you all so much of, you have to be strong and bold in, have safe work environment. But they feel this act can help them out. They misuse the act. So I really feel pity for those women who take up this act, and they create, there are many cases I can say. So one person asked me last month, ma'am, can you tell me how many cases you handle, how many were there? I just told him 30% to 40% of the cases were malicious. See, that means there are sexual harassment happening. Those people don't voice out. But people who are voicing out are the ones who take up this act into their hands, and they create it's all like fabricated case, or they bring in some they have a very good friendly relationship with the other person, but when they are not happy with one incident or one thing which she's not happy with the other person, she transfers the whole issue as a sexual harassment. So we have to really do so much of homework when we handle this case. So, and then we should know about who's a complainant, respondent. See, when I tell about who's a complainant, who's a respondent, there are many companies, when they tell me, ma'am, we have received a complaint, ma'am, the accused is coming for the meeting now. See, without even knowing whether he has done that act or not, we cannot use the word accused. We have no right to use a person as accused. So we have to only say there is a complainant, and the individual will come, or you can, if you are not able to use any legal term, at least you can say the person, the individual, that person on whose name the complaint has been. You cannot just like that brand a person is accused. So these type of things which we have to be a little sensitive, especially when we are handling cases, no? So, and we are not there to judge them and all. See, because there are times when people make mistakes, but we are only telling them that this is wrong, and they act whatever it says we have to do. But I have seen some companies, that is very few companies, they immediately terminate when they come to know that this person has taken and has attempted something. You cannot do that, because this act clearly says that this act is for the complainant and the respondent. It is not talking only for the complainant alone, because both of them are individuals and both of them require our support. Okay, so we should know who's the respondent and the conciliation process, inquiry process, witness, malicious complaint, other things. These are the terms which you have to know. As I told you, aggrieved woman is none other than the one who has experienced some sort of harassment, and the complainant is the one who lodges a complaint. Many people go through harassment, but only few come forward to lodge a complaint, and the respondent is the one who has done harassment to a woman. And then say when we get a case, so immediately we cannot go through the inquiry process. We have to give them the benefit of telling her. See, for example, there was one case where both of them are holding a very senior position. Both of them have gone for a dinner, and they were like they had their food and other things. Somewhere something did not, something happened between them. So she brought in a statement saying that this person was with me till 10 p.m. and he tried to harass me. That was her subjective feeling. But then we have to speak to the respondent and tell him that why did he stay with her after 10? So many things during our process. Then finally, when we try to explain to her certain things, sometimes, okay, very rarely people who have lodged a complaint come for this conciliation. Very rarely. I can say in all my these years of experience, only 2 of them had come for conciliation. The rest of them, they came through went through the inquiry process. Then the intermeasures. We recently handled a case, like once you know that a woman has gone through an harassment, immediately you have to ask her whether she's willing to work from home or willing to take some, the company has to give her holiday, because if you don't do that, she can immediately again lodge a complaint against the ICC or the company, stating that we did not look into a case. So these are the things, few things people, we have to really understand about the intermeasures. Then ex partes, if they both of them do, after lodging a complaint, if both of them do not come, then it is ex parte. So now this is our answer. I think I'm running short of time. So just to give you all some gist of what constitutes sexual harassment, we should know as individual, when we are talking about POSH Act, we should know what constitutes sexual harassment. This is about the 4 things: physical contact and advances. Physical contact, sometimes as friends, they have, they hug, or they even hold their hands, or they might tap, or so many things. But you have to be very careful at the workplace. You have to be very careful. Set your boundary. Don't even, I feel that you should not even think of even appreciating them by physical touch. Because today they might take it in a positive way, tomorrow they can take it in a negative way. So we have to be, what I feel is, when you are coming to work, maintain professionalism. Let us not do all these patting them. Some of them have the habit of even hugging them. See, we understand sometimes when there are times, see, when people, they say, no, out of it, I've been doing that all these years, and none of them have complained. For one person, they don't like you hugging them, because they have like to appreciate them. So many things you should know, because whatever you do, it can be taken in a different way by the person who's experiencing it. And demanding, requesting sexual favors and other things, then showing pornography. See, there in a case where the person has got the habit of seeing all porn video and other things. But when you're insisting somebody else from your company to see it, just come and see it. So that comes under this harassment case. So, but they can say, no, I just showed. She should have moved out from the place. No, she should have said, don't show me. No. But you calling her to see that itself comes under this act. So even though we educate, sometimes even people who are holding senior most HR posts, they also slip. I don't know whether that moment they miss out that these are the elements which can constitute sexual harassment. Then sexually colored remarks, telling them, hey, you're wearing a good dress, or you cannot say that she's wearing a dress like some porn star. See, might be that porn star is a pretty woman only, but when you are saying something related to a porn star, she can take it in a different way. So we have to be very careful about, for example, I want to tell you about one case where they had a very good relation. I mean, they had a very good professional relationship, and they used to now and then share some messages. In one time, what happened was he just shared about one food which had this porn star name. See, but his intention was to just see how these people are misusing this lady's name and making even starting a restaurant. But how the other person, when that message was passed to the other person, she took it in a different way. She went to an extent, you will not believe, the company spent about lakhs of money, lakhs of thing to handle this particular case because of this particular superior person sharing an image which had the porn star name. So you have to be very careful about it, because the act only supports women, and it also gives weightage for the subjective feeling of the women. Then 4 groups of sexual harassment: verbal, what we speak, even if it is casual, be careful at workplace. Visual, then visual is showing all these pictures. Sometimes you can say at workplace, people just putting up their actress or actor's photo, which is half nude or something like that. So you have to, if the other person does not like it, you have to remove it, because you can keep whatever you want at home, but not at workplace. And return, any sort of communication where you want to just say, see, even no, okay, some of them have the habit of signing their mail with love. So be careful when you're writing that also, because that can be taken in a different way by the other person. Then physical. So these are the 4 groups of sexual harassment, and that is a definition for all these. And when you see many of them, ma'am, this is an harassment. Even looking at a harassment. Yes, the act says obscene gestures, these things, or all these, indecent comment, dirty jokes, everything. When the person feels that is an harassment, it is an harassment. So you have to be very careful at workplace. And when we talk about workplace, so that is about sexual harassment. Second is about the workplace. Workplace is a place where a person even goes for a meeting outside their work area or their city, or that also comes under workplace. Anything happens in a different place, or when they are traveling together or relating to work, if they face anything, that also comes under workplace. Say, for example, when I talk about this workplace, I would like to bring in, see, one person went and had his food in a hotel, okay, and he wanted he wanted his friend also to take the food from that hotel. He just asked that lady in the hotel her number, and when he saw her DP, he just made a comment, your picture is hot, and she lodged a complaint to the company, and it came under POSH Act. But I had a real tough time with the company legal department, because it doesn't come under workplace. So we cannot take up this. See, because the company is so proactive, they want to take up anything and everything as workplace. No. So then we had that legal person to give it in writing, stating that this comes under workplace. Then we handle this case. So you have to be very cautious. I really want to tell you, be very cautious. This act is supporting so many things, and each of us, I understand that I'm not threatening you all, but this is more of a knowledge sharing. Okay, it has to, workplace should be positive, protective, and preventive. And redefining workplace, I'm talking about the virtual place where most of us, now most of them are using this mode of work, and you have to be vocal about when you're not happy with the pictures, what is being displayed in the whatever Zoom or whatever it is, you can be vocal about it. And then what is meant by unwelcome? So this is a common statement. When the other person does not encourage or does not like whatever you're doing, it is unwelcome, and that comes under the sexual harassment. Even calling a dear. See, we have got the habit, no? When we are so elated, now, okay, hi dear, don't use that, because they might say that. I'm not blaming women, but these are small things which we have to just take into account, that when you are in workplace, you have to know that you have to have some professional languages too, and you have to stick to that, and not using dear, love, and other things and all. So what is welcome and unwelcome? Sexual harassment and workplace. How many minutes I've got? Till a few minutes. 2
Ma'am,
minutes?
maybe just a couple of more minutes. Ma'am.
Yeah. So this is about sexual harassment at workplace. This could throw an hostile work, and that is creating an hostile, like a person is uncomfortable. So that is another thing. And I'll go through it. So these, which is not considered as harassment. And so, okay, there is a policy which has been prepared by the management along with the ICC members. That policy, they have to frame it in a gender neutral, so that it helps both men and women. Then then I was telling you, to handle cases relating to sexual harassment, the company has got a committee formed. So they are the quasi-judicial body which takes up this case. Once a complaint is received by the committee, they go through the conciliation or the inquiry process, and there are members, senior member will be the presiding officer, and there's an external member, and other members they have been nominated by the management, and they are the ones who receive the complaint, and they are the ones who also ensure that they create awareness among the employees. And this is a way how you have to file a complaint. Anybody telling you all about the act doesn't, like it's not taken into account unless and until it is given through written complaint. Only then the committee can take up, and the management, once the committee goes through the inquiry process and they do a lot of fact finding, and finally they give the inquiry report, and the management takes action against after receiving the report. If the complainant is not happy with the inquiry report, she can challenge it to the High Court, or she can take it up to the next level. So these are the powers of committee. The committee members have to be non-judgmental, they have to be gender neutral, and they have to have this non-biased opinion. So they have to follow the principle of natural justice. It is not like other act. This act clearly follows the principle of natural justice. That is what I said. Both the complainant and the respondent are important for the management. Until the inquiry process, we have to give importance for both of them. Both of them, they have to be. So, and there are things like, 3 things when we talk about roles and responsibilities. One is hearing, fair play, and the recent orders. The first thing I told you all about the act is protection, prevention, and prohibition. This is the responsibility of ICC's hearing, fair play, and then recent orders. So then in 2021, same-sex, they are saying the act says that the respondent talks about, it's not saying that it is male, it is a person. So same-sex harassments are happening nowadays, and it's a big challenge for the ICC members too. These are the points, like anonymous complaints will not be accepted by the ICC committee or the company. It has to only come from the person who has gone through the harassment, and everything and anything is confidential. Even a person, the complainant cannot take up, and once she has lodged a complaint, she is not supposed to even disclose the respondent name. And anybody talking about complainant or the respondent will be the management can take action. And the malicious complaint will have the severe consequences, as like how the harassment has happened. And the company displays the anti-retaliation policy and other things. And these are the consequences which usually the POSH Act follows: verbal warning letter, withholding promotion, transfer. There are most of the companies, they frame in such a way the policy, they terminate once they know that comes under, it has got some tone of sexual harassment. So employer's obligation is to create a committee and conduct awareness annually. And this is the mandatory complaints. Like annually, the company has to submit the annual report of how many meetings they've conducted, how many trainings they've conducted, and then about the cases, what they received. This, they have to send it to the district officer and plus a labor commissioner. So I'm ending with this.
We've heard about what constitutes sexual harassment, and we've heard about a lot of the legal issues in the workplace, the POSH thing. And so that was interesting. And now let's go to how we can heal and overcome the trauma. All right. So as this is part of my work really, and it's also part of probably what a lot of us do when we talk to our friends and when we try to help them overcome this kind of problem. So how do people deal with trauma? This is a picture of the Chennai cyclone. And as you can see, there are these waves and there's the wind and the trees are uprooted and it causes a lot of damage, right? So after a cyclone or after any kind of storm, we normally go into doing the obvious thing, just getting rid of the superficial problem, right? So we clean up the place, we remove the dead trees, we sort of help the water to drain away. If there's anything soaked, the mattresses and so on, that was discarded, and sort of we deal with the surface issues. But how many of our cities in India, for instance, actually do anything about dealing with the deeper issues as to why there is this, these recurrent storms at all? Why do we have trees falling down? Why are there, problems like this happening? Perhaps we need to deal with climate change. Perhaps we need to make sure that the trees are not unbalanced. Perhaps we need to make sure that the drains are always clear. But often we don't address the deeper issues. And it's the same thing with psychological trauma. All right. We often have people going through, as you heard the statistics, there is a lot of child sexual abuse going on. There's a lot of domestic violence. There's a lot of harassment at the workplace. All right. We often step over the line. And it's not a question of just safeguarding ourselves. It's a question of understanding that a lot of what we do can be disturbing and painful for others. So we need to be able to correct ourselves. That is very true. So it's very common, this kind of thing. And what happens if there is acute trauma? Well, this is the acute stage. There is this feeling of shock. There may be anxiety, panic, a lot of weeping and agitation, distress, insomnia, flashbacks sometimes of the trauma, okay, particularly if there was a lot of violence or rape, and a lot of physical symptoms may occur. But what about the deeper issues, the longer lasting psychological issues? And these are what I want to stress a little bit on. There, a lot of people, when they go through a trauma, they suffer from a lot of confusion, and that goes on to anger. So you're confused. Why has this happened? Why has God allowed this to happen? How could this happen to me? So there's this feeling of numbness and shock and confusion, that this can't have happened to me. This was not how my life was supposed to go. And then the anger, okay, the anger at God, the anger at parents, the anger at perhaps the workplace, the seniors who didn't warn you about a particular person, or the anger at poor handling by either the school or the college or whatever it is, a lot of anger. Then there are these feelings of worthlessness which happen when we internalize that this happened to me because I am a worthless person. Obviously, I'm not valued by anybody. God doesn't value me. My parents didn't protect me. So I must not be worth anything. So this is a very unspoken, but unconscious, underlying, deeply held belief, which often happens to people who undergo any kind of trauma or sexual abuse. Sometimes it can end up with a very lasting feeling of powerlessness, the feeling that I can't do anything to change my life. This is how my life is going to be. A feeling of helplessness, that I can't change things. This is how it's going to be. So this kind of weary acceptance of continued sexual abuse happens sometimes because of the powerlessness the person may feel. They may feel abandoned and betrayed by family, by God, and that's not a comfortable feeling at all. And it can lead to all sorts of lasting trauma. And then the feeling of shame, the feeling that, did I bring this on myself? The way we heard earlier, the feeling of guilt if there was any sense of pleasure in what happened. Because the early stages of grooming, where the person grooms the child or the young person that he's going to abuse, they flatter them, they bring them gifts, they become a special person to them, and they act as if this is our special secret. So there is a lot of pleasuring that is going on. And if the person has enjoyed that at any level, they feel shame and guilt that, did I cause this? So the stigma, the self-hatred can last for years. And it can manifest in a lack of trust, that you can sort of stop being close and you can withdraw from your own family members who you feel let you down. And sometimes you can withdraw from the other sex. You can feel that all men are like that, or I cannot trust anybody. So this lack of trust can become a real problem. Lack of confidence, because you feel powerless. You feel you cannot change anything. and I'm not worth anything. So, just this constant feeling can lead into all sorts of depression, anxiety, and lasting psychological issues. Relationships are often a problem. Many of people who go through trauma are unable to maintain healthy relationships afterwards. Even if they do get into a relationship, often they have sexual problems in the relationship. Sometimes young people can show some kind of early or cautious or abnormal sexualization. So they go from relationship to relationship. They may be a little promiscuous. They may give in to flirting, or they may give in to sort of strange men making advances, or whatever it is. So this precautious and strange sexualization can sometimes happen, where you relate to people on the basis of this sexuality. Academic and interpersonal problems are common. Rebellion and conduct problems, disobedience, not listening to the parents, withdrawing, being defiant, okay? Sometimes borderline personality problems. You sort of go from intense feelings of love for a person to hate. So these a series of relationships which end up like this. And then self-harm, cutting yourself, or other kinds of more harmful, perhaps, suicidal ideas, urges, and this feeling of struggling to get into a relationship because you're not comfortable on your own and you want somebody, and at the same time you're afraid of being betrayed and left alone. Substance abuse can be common. Eating disorders can be common. All this can happen. How do you heal? Okay, I'll just take a few minutes and then we can go on to the questions. Now, there's a picture on the side which says 5 steps to self-healing in 5 minutes. Okay, so I just want to say that is not possible. All right, we have all this social media and these internet sites and all this kind of self-healing thing which goes on, that you can quickly save yourself and all that. But actually, particularly if the trauma is long-lasting and chronic, healing can take years, which is why in this, as in many other cases, prevention is very important. And we discussed it, different ways by which we can prevent. The legal aspect is important. People should be careful. People should be aware that this is a problem. People should avoid hurting other people and avoid being, just be sensible and treat everybody as friends and treat everybody kindly. That's the general rule, right? And legalese, we can put it in all sorts of words. The idea is prevent this from happening. Protect your children, protect each other, avoid situations where you can, be mistaken, be careful with what you say, and don't get into places where you can get into this kind of hurt. Because if it does, healing takes a long time. Now, I have to condense this whole long process of healing into one slide, but I've tried to do it just to simplify and tell you what the process is. The process is that what you are thinking and what you're going through should be brought to awareness, because awareness is the first stage of recovery. That's a Freudian concept, and that is also something which is being sort of accepted by all these self-help gurus as well, that you need to be aware of what is going on with you, which is very true. Now, how do you get these hidden thoughts and attitudes out? There are different ways. Sometimes talking with somebody helps. Okay, so talking with a good friend, perhaps, but choose a wise older friend. Don't think your teenage friend is going to be adequate to deal with your chronic issues of trauma. Right? Talk with somebody, starting with a wise older friend or perhaps a pastor, or if it is long-lasting and really problematic problems, yes, a therapist, a psychiatrist, anybody. Talking can be really helpful. Writing it out is a very good way. Art can be a good way, all right? If you are honest enough to bring out what you're thinking through different forms of art, music or painting or any form of art, which can bring out what you're thinking. And of course, reflection. Scriptural reflection, maybe meditation of different ways, or religion or whatever it is, reflecting, getting certain truths, maybe from the Bible or other books that you may read, and then reflecting on it in your own life, applying it in your own life. If there are verses on peace or verses on forgiveness, how do I deal with this? Who do I need to forgive? If there are things about acceptance or, going to God with your problems, and you think, what is it that I have not talked about with God for a long time? Things like that. So reflect on your problems. And this is a long-standing thing. It will take time, okay? And we have to analyze what we get ourselves or with sensible help. And reflect on it. It will take time. What am I thinking? Am I actually feeling powerless or accepting that I am worthless and therefore these things happen to me? Am I feeling that my parents could have done more and they failed me and they are horrible people and I must hate them? Or my abuser was, should have known better, and I will never forgive him, and I curse him. All the thoughts that you have in your mind, you will need to reflect on them. And then you will need to correct those thoughts and attitudes. Correct them to a point where you regain that serenity, okay, where you regain that sense of equality. Rape and trauma and all these other things are actually a form of gaining power. They're not sexual acts so much as acts of power. They're acts of establishing who is in the dominant relationship. They're acts of basically patriarchy and hierarchy, okay, that I can do this to you, therefore I will. But the person who's gone through this needs to regain that sense of equality, that yes, this aberrant thing happened to me, but I am not unequal. I am not worthless. I am not worth nothing. I am worth a lot. I have my own potential and job and things that I can do. And regaining that serenity, okay, regaining the sense that I will find my way. And it takes a long time, right? You'll have to correct thoughts that happened and then regain the serenity, regain the agency. This will take time, but then often this is the process that we help people to go through. It may take years, but often many people come out at the other end with this sense of power and agency and serenity, where they accept that the other person was the one who made the mistake. I do not need to blame myself. Okay, I have no guilt in this. Okay, I was groomed. I was, this was done to me, and I will learn from this, and I will go on and I will help others. So they move from being a victim, being a survivor, and then being an advocate for equality and helping each other and kindness and feminism and equality and all these kind of things, which will help to prevent this kind of actions in future. I just want to add one sentence at the end. How can the abuser heal? The person who's abused often has gone through abuse themselves. They're often trying to get some kind of power through this kind of relationship. They're often trying to prove to themselves that they are worth something. So they are equally in need of help, equally in need of healing. And often this is not addressed. I would be really encouraged, Lighthouse actually tried to encourage and help the abusers as well. All right, now this is one suicide note that I've put up, and I want you to notice what the young girl experienced. I'll read it out for you. This is something that she wrote in her suicide note, which is horrible to read, but let's read it anyway. I did not tell you in the first place because I am so scared and ashamed of this thing. If this is any other problem in my life, I would not try to kill myself. But this matter is the one I could not even handle. The thing is, Vinod Jain, this was some politician, he is the one behind this. He has been sexually harassing me since 2 months. He kept on touching, and she goes on to say, but you notice these words here, which talks about what she's going through. I'm so scared and ashamed, okay? So she's experiencing this sense of fear, and she's experiencing this deep sense of shame, which is actually so unnecessary, because what did she do to be ashamed of? The person who touched her, the person who harassed her, is the one who should feel shame that he did this to somebody. Okay, but instead the victim is feeling ashamed. So you can see here, this is the cognitive distortion which is happening. If this is any other problem in my life, I would not try to kill myself. So she's feeling that this problem is so huge that I do not deserve to live anymore. And this is another cognitive distortion, right? Because she's saying that this one thing, that somebody touched me and harassed me, is such a big thing in my life that I am not worth living anymore. Okay. And you can see that this is, this is a distortion. There's a wrong thought that this young girl went through, and therefore I could not even handle. So the sense of powerlessness and helplessness is coming through. Actually, there probably were many things that she could have done, right? If she had told the right people, perhaps something could have been done. But the sense of powerlessness and helplessness in this poor young girl's case drove her to take her own life. So I want you to remember these things, and this is what the deeper issues are. And they have to be reflected on, brought up, and then processed, talked with people, and corrected over time for the person to heal. So I want to stop here and leave time open to you to ask questions.
Enoch, maybe you can take
Yeah.
over for the announcements.
Right. Yes. So I think that is the conclusion of everything the panelists have shared with us. My thanks to all three of you on behalf of us all. Thank you for telling us things we might not know otherwise, and just helping us to have a better perspective basically on these things. And decide with more information.